How do you determine what a human being is worth? It's not a question we typically ask ourselves because it seems silly or wrong to try to put a number to a living, breathing, sentient life form. Is a human only valuable in the monetary sense, what they can contribute to the workforce? Most of us would probably agree that all humans have an innate value greater than any single dollar amount. But that's not what this video is about. In this episode, we're going to examine how humans are exploited to gain the most return on investment. Exploitation happens in many different ways, but we're going to focus on three: the trading of one's time, energy, and skills for a wage, the sale of one's organs and other useful organic matter, and the sale of a human being into slavery or forced labor. We'll start with the sale of body parts and organs on the black market. As strange as it sounds, the illegal organ trade is incredibly lucrative, at least for the middlemen facilitating the deals. If you're looking for a change in career and don't mind the risk of a super illegal and arguably unethical job, the price tags on human body parts might seem enticing. Starting with the more budget bits, you can buy a shoulder, stomach, or spleen for just $500. Scalp sells for just a little more at $600. Gallbladders are a bit more expensive at about $1,200 a pop. But if you really want to see some money, you could sell bone marrow, which goes for $23,000 per gram. When you think about the fact that cocaine goes for around $150 per gram, suddenly you see just how insanely lucrative the black market organ trade is. Corneas go for $24,500, a heart is $119,000, a liver fetches $157,000, and the crown jewel of the illicit organ trade, the kidney, goes for $200,000 each. If it seems odd that a kidney is more valuable than a heart, remember that about 75% of organ transplants are for kidneys. And if you've bought a black market organ, the procedure will be performed by a black market surgeon. Would you want to undergo a full heart transplant in a back alley somewhere? Probably not. Since buying and selling organs is illegal in every country except Iran, the illicit organ trade has flourished, and is currently valued at about $1.2 billion per year. Just as a thought experiment, if you were to sell all of your valuable bits and pieces on the black market, the total price for your body would exceed $60 million, provided you could successfully recover every single gram of bone marrow, every drop of blood, every inch of skin, and all of your organs. So the next time someone says you're worthless, you've got quite a counterpoint. Let's move on to something a little more traditional and a little less unpleasant: wages. Most of us work for a wage, that is, a predetermined amount of money that we're paid for performing a certain job. We see working for a living as the normal way to exist and pay for things, but what we often fail to consider is the antagonistic relationship between labor and capital. Think of it this way: the company that hired you wants to make the largest profit possible while minimizing expenses. You want to be paid as much as possible for your time because you only have so much time to work, and thereby earn money. Your goal is diametrically opposed to that of the company. If they pay you and your fellow workers a higher wage, their profits will shrink. If they cut your pay, their profits will rise. The trick for corporations is to find the lowest amount of money a worker is willing to accept, and offer that wage across the board. The problem is, when this logic is applied across entire markets, there comes a point at which the goods produced by labor begin to overaccumulate, because the workers can't afford to consume at a rate that matches the market's production. But that's a topic for a whole other video. What we want to look at in this video is how valuable the workforce is to its corresponding corporations. We all know that the pay gap between the average worker and the CEO is absurdly high. The average executive is paid 312 times more than one of their workers, and some are much higher than that. These companies are incredibly profitable, as evidenced by how much they pay their executives. But how do they ensure this rate of return? A 2018 report revealed that, since 2000, there have been 4,220 cases of wage theft by corporations, totaling a staggering $9.2 billion in penalties. Wage theft isn't as straightforward as it sounds. It's not like corporations think they can get away with paying their workers less than the minimum wage, though some do try. Instead, they try to squeeze every last drop of value out of their workers in less conspicuous ways. Such ways include not paying employees for overtime, miscategorizing full-time employees as part-time to exempt themselves from basic labor standards, failing to give workers meal or restroom breaks, and requiring hourly workers to complete tasks before clocking in or after clocking out. Unsurprisingly, the worst offenders were often the most profitable: Walmart, FedEx, Comcast, Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet. Plenty of big household names on the list, and 10 of the top 12 most penalized corporations have profits measured in billions or tens of billions, and an average CEO pay of $16 million per year. According to one estimate, workers in Colorado alone lose almost $750 million per year in stolen wages. The magic recipe of low wages, miscategorization, and overworking net a pretty good return on investment for the corporation, especially if they don't get caught breaking labor laws. But there's one more form of exploitation that blows it out of the water: As unfathomable as it seems that slavery could still exist today, human trafficking is the single most lucrative form of human exploitation currently in existence. It's a fascinating and ethically horrible industry, because it's the only one where the product and the consumer are the same thing. The sale of humans to humans for forced labor or the sex trade is estimated to be worth $150 billion annually. How is this possible? It actually makes a lot of sense if you think about it. The barrier to entry is very low, the profits are extremely high, and the risk is negligible. Traffickers simply have to be stronger or otherwise more dangerous than their prey in order to secure a human product. The demand for human property in less developed parts of the world is alarmingly high. Strong adult men and women for manual labor, young children for the sex trade, and unlike drugs, humans can be sold more than once, keeping the money flowing. The demand for commercial sex has risen over the last few decades, prompting a huge number of transactions involving young, impoverished, or otherwise at-risk individuals, who are sold to strip clubs, commercial sex operations, or prostitution rings. Of the $150 billion in annual profits, $99 billion come from sexual exploitation, and the remaining $51 billion from economic exploitation, that is, manual labor, including domestic work and agriculture. The net profit margin for this illicit trade is over 70%. In the world of human trafficking, the value of a person comes not only from their sale price, but more importantly, from the value of their continued production of goods or services. The roughly 21 million people currently affected will continue to produce profits at an incredibly high rate of return for as long as this despicable industry is allowed to survive, which makes it the most effective and most profitable form of human exploitation in existence. It's easier than black market organ sales and more profitable than wage theft, so you can see why it affects so many people around the world, including in first world countries like the US. We have to remember that at the end of the day, humans aren't just a product or an asset. We're worth more than whatever amount of money can be squeezed out of us. We have to be vigilant and speak out when we see exploitation around us. To learn more about the forms of exploitation discussed in this episode, check out the links in the description below. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.